The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of this station, its staff, management, and ownership.
Good morning. I'm Larry Hughes for St. Francis Hospital and Health Centers in Poughkeepsie. Most of us only hear about mental illness, but Joanne Brown and the other members of the National Alliance on Mental Illness Family-to-Family Education Program live it through family members. Here's our conversation.
There's a lot of stigma involved, and people don't realize that it's a physical illness like any other illness, like diabetes, heart disease, cancer. And with treatment, people can live very productive, happy, fulfilled lives.
And then there's a headline, and whether it's gun control or whatever, something bad happens, and it turns out that the individual involved had been treated or something like that, and suddenly it becomes a debate on mental illness. That extends the stigma, doesn't it?
It does. Whenever I hear a situation like that, I realize going through a family member myself, developing a mental illness in his early 20s, that's the most dangerous time when it's surfacing. They lose touch with reality. They'll hear voices that tell them to hurt themselves or others. So it's a very dangerous time. Or maybe they've been in treatment and now they're feeling better and they stop taking their medication, because that's another problem. People with mental illness, once they feel better, they stop taking their meds. They don't think there's something wrong with them, so they're constantly going off of their medication.
And the meds often have drawbacks.
Yes, my son gained 70 pounds in 3 months from medication. There's drawbacks, but any medication we take, antibiotic, whether we're taking medication for heart disease, even chemotherapy, it has side effects and it affects other organs and parts of the body. But you have to weigh it. The good outweighs the weight gain or the side effects, because then it helps your brain to become balanced and then you can function. So yes, there's side effects, but to be able to think clearly and live a functioning life surely outweighs that.
Your son developed a mental illness in his 20s. Was there any family history, or were you just caught by this?
I think there's some family members with undiagnosed mental illness, whether it be depression or something else, but we were totally caught off guard. We just never, not any close family member had a serious mental illness, and we didn't even realize what was happening. We just knew something was really, really wrong.
What were some of the early signs that, in retrospect, maybe you could have connected some dots on?
My son was on his own, in his own apartment, working. He started becoming disorganized, paranoid, talking about bizarre things, and thinking things had power or people were reading his mind. He wasn't eating. So now that I look back, I could see that those are definitely, he got very quiet and he looked very disconnected, because these are the signs of relapse. And we know that if we see that occurring now, the red flags are up and we watch him because he probably stopped taking his meds.
I would guess that, like most parents, your first conclusion was that he's doing drugs.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But you realize, especially once he's taken to the hospital and they do all the blood tests, that it's not drugs or alcohol at all. That there is definitely a chemical imbalance in the brain which is causing incorrect thought process. And but it's still very difficult to accept the mental illness. So you're in total denial and you're wondering, is it drugs, is it illness? You just know something's really wrong. And then when you find out it is mental illness, that's very difficult to accept as well.
If there were do-overs, would you have acted sooner, or could you have acted sooner?
That's a great point. That's a problem. once they're of age, and my son was 22, you cannot get them help.
Yeah.
He refused to go to the doctor. We knew something was wrong. We actually visited a psychiatrist, my husband and I, to talk about what we could do to get him in there, because he was not a danger to himself or others. And he was going to work, he was functioning, but they warned us that he's going to decompensate, and eventually he won't be able to hold his job. And that is what happened. It took a couple of months, but it's very frustrating because you know as a parent there's something seriously wrong and you can't get them help.
How frustrating it must be to, as a parent, suspicious, strongly suspicious of psychiatric mental illness problem, and by law not being able to help your own child.
Yes, it's frustrating. You feel helpless. It was actually one of the worst periods of our life.
If your son had developed these symptoms when he was 17, it would have been totally different?
I haven't no experience with that, but from people that in my support group that I do hear, it is different because you're the parent, you're able to get them help, and I hear that as soon as they turn 18, have things in place because it drastically changes.
I can't imagine what that must have been like for you. How many sleepless nights?
I still have sleepless nights, but they're getting better. You just worry, you do. But you know, once they're in treatment and you become educated about it, it's easier. It is. And to see, you know, him in treatment and accepting it, even though at times he still doesn't think he's ill, he's living a very productive, happy life. And it's easier for us because we're educated as well.
When did you find NAMI?
We found NAMI, actually the support group, when he was acting bizarrely and he was refusing to get help. And we started going to the support group, and they gave us resources, a booklet. We just had support because at that point in your life, you know something's wrong, but you can't do anything about it. And you're waiting for the very, very bad to happen, unfortunately, until they get into a crisis and they end up in the hospital. And then when they're in crisis, you as a family are also in crisis because you've just been traumatized by what you've gone through.
You have to take a cram course, don't you? I mean, nothing in life, and again, it's an assumption, nothing in life prepares you for finding yourself in this situation. And this isn't someone you know, this is yours. And if you, I suppose there are those who choose to walk away, but that really was never an option, was it?
No, not at all. He had a desire, because once he went back in the hospital, he ended up in a psychiatric hospital for 4 months, but he had a very strong desire to become independent again, to again get his own apartment, get his car back on the road, at some point be volunteering or working again. And we supported him. It was difficult because we live, even though we're in Dutchess County, it's 45 minutes each way, and he was out here in Poughkeepsie. So every day for 3 years, it seemed, we were coming out here and back, sometimes twice a day. But that support is so important. They say when they have family and friends supporting them, that their recovery and relapse is less.
What were your options? I mean, well, first, when did you find out exactly what it was that you were dealing with? What his specific illness was?
When he was first hospitalized, they gave him a diagnosis. And then he did the partial program, and he was trying to go back to work. He actually made it a couple of days and back to his own apartment. And then he relapsed because he stopped taking his meds. At work, he was working on a machine, and the meds were making him too tired, so they lowered them. And he was rehospitalized, and then we realized the seriousness of the illness, and then especially when he had to go to the psychiatric hospital for stabilization and safety, and realizing, too, that no matter that he was on medication and taking it, some medications do not make everything go away. They minimize the symptoms, but sometimes the voices don't stop. The delusions are still there. And that was a little scary because we always thought, go on medication and we're good now.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it works.
Yeah, you and your husband must have been so pleased when you found out what it was. It had a name. You could look it up and you could talk to people about it. But it's a long way from identification to elimination.
Yes, absolutely. It's a whole change of his life. He has,
and your life.
Yes. And he had to realize, and like I said, part of the illness is not thinking you're ill, so it's very challenging. But he realized eventually that he had to take responsibility for his life and his illness. And we actually found the NAMI family-to-family class when he was being admitted into the psychiatric hospital. And that was a 12-week class that helped us as family members to get educated, to learn how to take care of ourselves, even though we were taking care of him, and how to communicate better with him. And so us getting educated and his desire to live a fulfilling life and was essential.
Psychiatry, of course, is an exact science, if it is a science. I get the impression that the family-to-family groups were just as important to your family as were all the psychiatrists you've encountered over the years.
Absolutely. There's been wonderful psychiatrists that know what they're doing, because a lot of times with medication, it's try one, the doses go up and down, change. It worked a little while, then changed to something else, and even now there's a constant adjustment of meds due to certain symptoms or sleep issues that he's having. So I am very grateful for the psychiatrists out there and their patience and their knowledge, and it really has helped him.
That must have been so disappointing to know that knowing wasn't enough. With a physical problem, physical illness, okay, you can operate, these are the options and things like that, and this is the outcome, this is what will happen after that. It's not like that with psychiatry, is it?
No. Meds might work for a while, then all of a sudden stop working. And there is no explanation why, and it's time to try something new. So it is definitely just try this, try that. But there's always things to try, and that's what I tell my son. There's drugs that he's never even tried, older drugs even. And I just went to the conference at Columbia University, the 28th Annual Schizophrenic Conference, and there are always new research, try this, try that. So there's always things to try. It's not hopeless.
What percentage of I know the stats on depression are off the boards. Schizophrenia, that's what your son has, correct? How common is that?
I think 1 in 100 people have some form of mental illness. I'm not exactly sure how common it is, but it's earmarked by if they have a delusion of some kind or they're hearing voices. That truly identifies schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder.
Yeah. Does your son realize he has a mental illness?
At times he says he does, but most of the time he does truly believe what he believes, that something is after him. He truly believes it. But he realizes the medication makes him feel better. And so he's a little confused with that, but he's agreed, thankfully in the last 9 months, to consistently take his medication. And he sees how well he's doing, how much he's progressed and matured. And so I'm glad that for now he knows he needs his meds and he's on them, but no, he still does not truly believe he has a mental illness.
Does he enjoy life? Can you enjoy life with a mental illness, knowing that there's something, even if you deny that you have a mental illness? certainly, the way people react to it, and the fact that you need medication is an indication that there's something going on.
He is truly enjoying his life. I'd say for the first 2 years after illness, he was in a community residence for a year. He slept a lot. He was exhausted physically and mentally, adjusting to medication, which he had never, ever taken. And now it's been 3 years, and like I said, in the past 9 months, he's playing guitar again, he's volunteering, he's back in touch with his old friends, making new friends, trying to help people. He is truly enjoying his life again.
You and your husband have done more than just read and learn a lot about mental illnesses. You're both certified family education teachers. What exactly is that?
NAMI has classes, and one of them is called Family to Family. It's a free...
Let me just... NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and that is a national program.
It is national, and then they have a New York State NAMI, and then they have affiliates. And NAMI Mid-Hudson is the affiliate we belong to, which is Dutchess and Ulster County. And every NAMI, no matter what state it's in, I think it's 49 states, including Italy and other countries have it as well. We have a free 12-week educational class, and it's for family members or friends who have a loved one with a mental illness. So like I said before, my husband and I took that in the fall of 2010. This past fall, we got a call from the president of NAMI Mid-Hudson, Barry Campbell, and he asked if we would be willing to go be certified teachers. The qualification is they do train you. It's very professional material. And another qualification is you have to be living with somebody who has a mental illness, because you're in a room with all these families. And even though you have families yourself, family members, best friends, they don't understand if they're not living with someone with a mental illness. So it's really an important factor. Every class, we have a bond with every single member that takes the class, every single person. We just bond.
That must be so important. That person knows what we're experiencing, as opposed to some paid speaker or some full-time professional.
Yes, and not only do we know what they're feeling, sometimes we're teaching the class and our loved one is in crisis themselves. And they yet, despite all of that, they look at us and they see that we're educated now. We realize what's going on, and they say that you look so good, you're doing so well, we want to be in that place, because in the beginning it's so scary and you're uneducated and it's a whole different place. So we give them hope and they inspire us, just like we got hope and were inspired when we took the class.
Is our country unique, or are the same illnesses, mental illnesses, the same numbers generally? Does it hold up worldwide?
It does. I don't remember the exact statistics, but in the class we do talk about that. And it is amazing that anywhere in the globe, it's the same. There's mental illness. Every culture, every country.
The shootings at the school in Newtown, the calls for background checks and the full litany. And the attention was also turned to people with mental illness having accessibility to weapons. Is that a legitimate argument from your perspective? Or does that just, here we go again, and you can predict that it's going to wind up with mental illness?
In some situations, the person with the mental illness is trying to access a gun, whether to kill themselves or harm others that voices are telling them. And I've learned, because of my concern with that every state, if somebody is involuntarily committed to a hospital, like my son was twice, their name should go on this list for the background check. So if they walk into Walmart or Dick's to try to buy a gun, they see that their name is on this list and they're unable to access it. What I didn't realize, though, is that the state voluntarily sends those names to the FBI for them to be on that list. So just because your loved one is involuntarily committed because of a mental problem, it does not mean they're automatically on that list. And that's a little scary because they need to not have access, since they're not thinking clearly. They really need to not have access to guns and weapons.
Yeah, it's really scary because it is voluntary on the part of the states, and where New York realizes its responsibility, some of our southern brethren states, they don't see the purpose of this other than taking away rights of people to have guns. So they don't send numbers, some a few, some more than a few, but some just ignore it, and there's no penalty involved. Let's for a second assume that there is a mother or father listening to this program, and at some point says to themselves, maybe it isn't drugs. I think you can relate to that point in their crisis where they're at now. What do you say to those people? What would you recommend to those people?
If the relative is unwilling to get help at that point, because the easiest thing would be to take them to a hospital and get them evaluated, I would say get to a NAMI support group, and everybody there can help you, point you in the right direction, give you resources, tell you what's available in the county. If you ever get worried, have a crisis plan, so that if a crisis does occur, that your loved one is becoming a danger to himself or others, you have a plan. The police in this area, Poughkeepsie Town Police, the state police, the sheriff, they're all very, very well trained to deal with someone having a mental issue. And just be prepared and come to the support group, take the family-to-family class, and get educated.
How can people find out more about NAMI and the education program? Is there a number or an email or a web page?
NAMI Mid-Hudson.org is our website. And then there's also the NAMI New York State site and NAMI National. And then there's always the Dutchess County Helpline. And then we have a number, which is 206-9892. It's an answering machine, but if you leave a message, someone will get back to you to give you more information regarding the support groups. We have one in Poughkeepsie, one in Dover Plains, and also the family-to-family classes, which are also in Poughkeepsie, Dover Plains, and Kingston.
And NAMI is spelled NAMI if you're going to the web page. And again, that stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They meet the third Tuesday of every month, and they meet here at St. Francis Hospital. You probably over the years become more of an expert on mental health than you ever wanted to.
Yes.
How do you keep on keeping on? How do you not just say to your husband, if we got in the car and started heading west, he might never find us?
Because most people with mental illness, especially the parents we meet with the children, are the most wonderful, bright, talented people you'll ever want to meet.
It's the kind of issue that so many of us are fortunate just to read about and make assumptions about. And it's so important that people like yourself, I call it putting a face on healthcare or mental health. It must be very satisfying to be active with NAMI and to speak with the parents of young people and not so young who are afflicted in this way. It must be it must relieve some of the accumulated pain that you can give back or give to those people, or make the road easier for them.
Yes. One of the stages, you learn about all the emotions you go through when people have mental illnesses, and one of the stages is finally advocacy, or helping others. And that's the point that we're at. And to be able to reach out and touch a life and give them hope, just like we were given hope. And then those that have had children with mental illnesses that are in their 40s, 50s now, they give us insight and wisdom as well. So it's all a team effort, and we're all helping each other.
How many dishes have you broken, as if thrown against the wall?
I don't throw dishes.
Oh, how do you get rid of the anger?
And that's another thing we learn in the class. How do we do that? Because we feel it's not fair. Why our sons?
Yeah.
And so we each find our little thing to do. I love a hot bath. Just sink in there, a glass of wine, play Scrabble with my friends. You've got to take care of yourself. And that's one of the things in the first classes we do. We talk about ourselves, not our loved one, ourselves. What is our interest? What are our hobbies? Because in all of this, it's very easy to lose yourself.
All Access Dental has come to St. Francis Hospital's Medical Arts Building in Poughkeepsie. We know a minor dental problem is one someone else has. All Access Dental specializes in general, restorative, surgical, pediatric, orthodontics, and periodontic quality care for you and your family. We combine expertise, experience, efficiency, and caring. We know it's all about you, the patient, and our rates are something to smile about. Medicaid and most insurances accepted. 877-949-0002.
Thanks for listening. That's our program for today. Please give us a listen next week. For St. Francis Hospital and Health Centers in Poughkeepsie, I'm Larry Hughes.